Alrighty. We doing pretty good tonight? Yeah? No? It was so rainy this morning, I actually felt like I was in fall. And like I was a little excited, but I was a little sad too, because it wasn't warm. But that's okay. All right, well, last week, we started our new series called Overflow, and this is going to be our giving series for the year that's going to kind of kickstart something that we talked about last week, and that is that as the source, we set a goal to raise $20,000. Woo! For Speed the Light. Come on. Now, that's a really big goal, and I broke it down for you guys last week, but some people were so kind to tell me that I did my math wrong. Okay, thank you, Alex. And so I think I did the math right this time. Okay, I'm just a girl, don't judge me. But $20,000 is a lot. So we broke it down for you guys to kind of make it seem more feasible. So here's the breakdown that I have for you this week. And if it's wrong this week, you know what, just go do the math for yourself, okay? We have about 130 students every single week, okay? That's like average here at the source. Now, if 130 of us say that we're gonna take equal part in this $20,000 goal, which by the way, if we get our $20,000 goal, the missions committee at Chapel Springs said they would match it to raise $40,000 because that's what the family, the Bates that we're giving it to need. And Pastor TJ and Pastor Caleb said that they would buzz their head. No, if you raise $40,000, I'm not buzzing my head. I did have that question last week. Sorry, sue me. Just kidding. But if 130 of us take equal share in this goal, okay, that is 150 per person in a year. Okay, that part of my math was correct. I know that was correct. Now, it's not like to the T, okay, give or take maybe a couple dollars because of decimals and stuff like that, but it's 150 a year, which means per person, it would be $13 a month. Or if you break it down even farther, if $13 a month seems like a lot for you, it's $3 a week, or my favorite number, 45 cents a day. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I can do 45 cents a day. Maybe not because they don't make pennies anymore, but like, did you guys know that they don't make pennies anymore? They stopped making them. I didn't even know you could do that. Okay, that's not the point. But the point is, if you break it down like that, it seems like a more reasonable goal than $20,000. And I want you guys to applaud yourself. Not yet, in a second, because you don't even know what you did. Okay, last week, you guys, hold on, Ashlyn texted me the number. I have to get my calculator out. Okay, over $500 was already brought in from you guys. That's insane. In one day, you guys already put a chunk into our goal, $500. So, we're getting there. We're on our way. Our 20,000 is getting smaller and smaller every single week, and I love it. But last week, I told you guys a story of how I went to Ghana, and I went to the market, and I thought I brought a little bit amount of money, and it ended up being a lot of amount of money there, and I got a lot of things, and that was really cool. But what I didn't tell you is that afterwards, I had money left over. And I decided that, okay, this money is going a lot farther than I thought it was going to go. So any money I have left over, I'm going to bring back to the children's home that we partnered with. And I'm going to give the money to some of the aunties, okay? The aunties run this children's home. And I was going to tell them, you know what? You can either give it to the children's home if you guys need something specific, or you guys work so hard, go get yourself like a new shirt or something. I was just going to bless them with it, which is great. I did. But truthfully, in that, I had a little bit of conviction giving it to them. Not because giving it to them was bad, but because I just went out and I spent all this money, and I was like, you know what, you guys can have the leftovers. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have felt guilty because like I was on a mission trip serving, but I just did because I knew that I could have given them much more than I actually did. You see, I didn't give my leftovers to them out of a place of overflow. I didn't give it out of a place of abundance. Like I said, I gave it out of my leftovers. This is all I had left, so here, I guess you can have that. And so I want you guys to know this today, that overflow cannot happen with our leftovers. Now, don't mishear me, okay? What you give, God is still going to use, and he is going to multiply it. But in order for us to give out of an overflow, to the point where we actually start spilling into the lives of others, it cannot be given out of just what you happen to have left. See, the principle of giving from abundance is seen throughout the Bible. When we tithe, we give our first 10%, right? Not our last 10%. And in in Colossians 3:23, we're commanded to give our best for God. And giving our best doesn't mean giving from a place of leftovers. And so tonight, we're going to talk about how we cannot give from our leftovers. And in order to not do that, we have to be good stewards of what we do have. So, stewardship is kind of a big word. It kind of sounds maybe a little bit daunting, like a big task or undertaking. But stewardship is simply this. It's the job of supervising or taking care of something. Now, in your life, currently, you steward a lot of things, whether you realize it or not. If you have schoolwork, you have to steward your schoolwork by doing it. That's stewarding your good grades. If you have to go home and clean your room, take care of the mess that you made, you're being a steward of your room. You're taking care of that. If you play a sport, you have to go to practice and you steward how you practice. Are you going to actually practice, or are you just going to do cartwheels on the field? I don't know. That was definitely me as a kid. Any money that you have, you are to take care of it. You are to supervise where it is going. You're a steward of your money. You guys see where this is going? Anything you have, anything that you are in charge of, you are a steward of. But just because you have something, just because you're in charge of it, doesn't mean that you're taking care of it well. You see, there's a parable in the Bible that models both what we should and honestly what we shouldn't do. So if you would open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 25, and while you do this, shout this out. Is a parable a true or a false story? False. Well, it's fictional. I guess that's probably the better way to put it. A parable is a story that Jesus told that didn't actually happen, but he's telling this story so the people who he's talking to can understand what he's getting at, right? They can say, oh, I can imagine this now. I can take this in my life, and it makes sense. And so this is one of the parables that Jesus tells. He tells a lot of them, actually. One of my favorites is probably the parable of the lost son. But that's not today. Today, we're going to be talking about the parable of the talents. And so, talents it's money. What it is a talent of silver is what you get for a year's wages. So if I say, hey, Emma, have my talent, right? That is 20 years worth of wages. So if you take what you make every single day and you store it up for 20 years, that's what this story is talking about. Okay, that's a lot of money. That's like hundreds of thousands of dollars of money, okay? So, Emma Moran wants it too. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, we're going to be talking about lots of money, right? Let's go. Matthew 25:14-15 says this. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave them 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in the proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. Okay, one of the best ways to understand what the Bible is actually saying is to stop and think about it verse by verse. What did you just read, and what did it actually just say? So what did we just read? We read that God entrusts us with resources, right? Remember, this is a story that God is telling. It's not about an actual guy who went on a vacation. It's a parable. It's a story, so we understand better. And so he's saying that this guy has lots of money, and he didn't want to just leave his money lying around to get stolen. So he gave it to these other guys, his servants, to take care of it when he was gone. In the same way that this guy entrusted his servants with the money that he had, God entrusts us with various resources, and a big one that he entrusts us with is money. So, following on the next part, verse 16 says this. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. Say 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. Say 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole into the ground and hid the master's money. Say tisk, tisk, tisk. Okay, after a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they used his money. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more bags and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more. Say 5 more. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. The servant who had received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I earned 2 more. Say 2 more. The master said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in handling the small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's go celebrate together. Wow, this third guy is really going to be left out here. The servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I was going to lose your money. So I hid it in the earth. Look, here it is. Here's your money back. But the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. Dang. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Then he ordered, take the money from the servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But to those who do nothing, even what little they have, it will be taken from them. You see, there are so many good things on stewardship that we can take away from this parable. And honestly, like I said earlier, there's so many things that we can look at it and be like, okay, that's what I really shouldn't do. But the first thing, and one of the most important things that I want you guys to take away from this parable about stewardship is this: nothing belongs to us. Nothing belongs to us. You see, the talents that the servants had did not belong to them, right? They were just put in charge of them for a limited amount of time. Stewardship holds a bigger weight in life when we understand that nothing belongs to us. Show of hands in here, who can drive? We have some drivers? Okay, for all my drivers in the room, I have a question for you. Raise your hand if you bought the car yourself with your own money that you drive. Miles, you can't drive. All right, now raise your hand if you drive like a family car. It's your parents' car, it's something you and your siblings share. Yeah, when I was in high school, I was driving a car that me and my dad actually shared. And so, if you know my dad, well, actually, none of you know my dad. So my dad's name is Robert, and Robert is one of the most type A people I think I've ever met. He has a place for everything. He has a purpose for everything. His car is so clean. He actually got a new car a little bit ago, and a little bit ago was like 3 years ago. God forbid you bring food in there. Oh my goodness. Food's not allowed in Dad's car, okay? He keeps it so clean. He even doesn't let the tank get like below half a tank of gas. He makes sure that this thing is maintained. He takes good care of his car. Now, if you met me, you know that that's not me, okay? Though I clean up all my messes are made in order to clean them up. And I don't fill my car up when it's below half a tank or when it gets to half a tank. I actually wait until it's like not really 0, but like my number kind of counts down. Like, oh, you have 50 miles left. So I typically go till there's like dashes because like there's a reserve tank, right? What else would it be for? And so clearly my dad and I live differently when we choose how to take care of our cars. But when I was in his car, I made sure that I took all my trash out right when I left the car. I made sure that every time I used it, I filled the gas up for him. I even would make sure that when I got into the driveway, I like turned down the radio a bit so it was at like his level when he got in the morning and not my level when I was coming home from work at night. When I had something that I was using that didn't belong to me, I took much better care of it. I made sure that I stewarded that thing really well. You see, everything that we own, everything that we have is actually a loan. That rhymes, you guys. Everything we own is a loan. Wow, look at that. Okay, it's temporary. We have it now, but in the end, we have to give it back to God. Or if you don't physically go and hand him your wad of cash, and you're like, here, God, here you go, he's going to ask you, well, what did you do with the things that you had? What did you do with the things that you had? You see, when this concept of things being on a loan to us actually starts to set in, it changes the way that we steward things. It makes you think about the splurges that you have maybe a little bit too often to even consider them splurges, right? A good steward is one who is more concerned about honoring God with their money and actually using it for a difference that lasts beyond eternity than they are in using it all on temporary things for materialistic highs of this world that truly will not last. See, another thing that we should take away from this parable is that if we can't steward with a little, then we can't steward with a lot. I would even go further in saying if God can't trust you with the little that you have now, then he's not even going to try and trust you with more that you might have later. See, the rich guy told his first two servants that since they were good stewards of the little, he was going to give them more. But then to the guy who hid it in the ground, who buried it with everything, with, the dirt so it wouldn't go away, to the guy who did nothing with it, not only did he not say, oh, let me give you more to see what you do with it, but he took what he had. He said, no, give that back to me, and he gave it to somebody else. Verse 29 says, to those who use well what they're given, even more will be given, and they will have in abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken from them. We kind of talked about this a bit last week, that sometimes it's hard to give when you're comparing what you have to someone else. When someone else has twice as much money as you, it's hard to give because you think what you have is insignificant, right? But then we went further on to talk about, no, even the drop that you put into the bucket, even the little bit that you give would be an overflow in your life because you're giving from the abundance of what you have, no matter how big or how small. Good stewardship of money that God has entrusted to us, truthfully, isn't something that comes easy. At least to me, probably not to most of us, because if it came easy to us, it would mean that we would just have so much self-control all the time. It would mean that our priorities were straight all the time. And that would be good, but since I feel like that's probably not most of us in this room, I'm so convinced I could spend like $1 million in a day, okay? Since that's probably not most of us in this room, we have to have a plan, right? Stewardship requires creativity. Stewardship requires creativity. Like I said, I could spend $1 million in one day. I have a plan. I'm gonna get a couple cars, maybe a house, decorate it real nice, get a whole new wardrobe, right? Money goes like that. It's so easy to spend. And honestly, I'm really good at it. Or so I have to have a plan in place, right? When my paycheck comes in, the first thing I do is I tithe. And then now I give my money to this missions goal that we have, right? Caleb and I set our own goal. We're going to give X amount every month. And then I get what I need, like groceries and stuff, right? I don't even let myself get groceries until my tithe is in. Because truthfully, it takes 30 seconds online, right? But that needs to come first. And then after I get my groceries, then I can go get anything else that I want with the money that I have left over. Or when I was in high school, maybe I wasn't able to have a job as I was doing school or in sports. And so I had to get creative with how I was making money. So I want to ask you this. What are you going to do to become a good steward? What are you going to do creatively to become a good steward? You see, I did different things, I did fine arts when I was in high school. I didn't do human video. My church wasn't big enough. We literally didn't have more than 10 kids. But I did other things, and one of the things that I did was t-shirt design, which is kind of really cool. So I would design a t-shirt, and then after districts happened and we went on to nationals for other things, I would get my t-shirt made, right? I would get 30 copies of this t-shirt, and then I would sell them. And that was a way that I fundraised to make money. Or my friends would come over to my house and we would build some crafts, maybe we would bake, and then we would go have a bake sale, a craft sale. And that's how I made some money for that. Or maybe we did pasta dinner. Pasta is so cheap to make, and people would pay like $10 to get some pasta with chicken and sauce, and it was good, but that was a way that we made money. Or one of my favorites was chores. Okay, we were not allowed to do paid chores at my house, right? Because my mom was like, well, you live under my roof, so you're cleaning too, right? Honestly, so valid. But then she would have like odd tasks, like opening up the windows and cleaning the windowsills, or I don't know, like raking the leaves in the yard, like things that you don't do on a weekly basis, like vacuuming. And those extra chores that we had were ones we could make money off of. So I would go to my mom and be like, hey, Mom, I need a little extra cash for this. What can I do? And she would give me a task. You see, we're called to steward what we have, but sometimes we have to get creative in our stewardship. We have to find different ways to make money or different ways to save money. Maybe you don't get your snack at the football game on Friday night and you take that money and you give it to Speed the Light. Maybe you have a job where you're bringing in money and you say, you know what, that's great. X amount of my paycheck every time I get it is going to go to Speed the Light. You see, whatever it is that you need to do, we all have the ability to steward our time or our money for what the Lord has blessed us with. We all have the capability to do something. Sometimes it just takes a little creativity in our thinking to figure out what we are going to do so that we can steward what we have well and make an impact that will last longer than we will last. So as we go into small groups tonight, we have a whole bunch of questions ready for you guys, but I want to leave you with 2 specific questions. So if you would, write these 2 questions down in your notebook, on your phone, however you need to do it to remind yourself of these 2 questions. The first is, are you stewarding what you have well? When you look at what's coming in, when you look at what you already have, right? We talked about this last week. We're going to focus on what we do have and not what we don't have. When you look at what you do have, are you actually using it well? Or the second you get it, does it fly back out the window to the whole list of things that you were planning on buying, right? $1 million a day? Or are you actually using it well? So first question was, are you stewarding what you have well? Second question, how can we get creative in our stewardship? How can you get creative in your stewardship? It's going to look different for every single person in this room. What works for one person may not work for another. What someone is good at and can use towards their stewardship, maybe someone else isn't good at. So what can you do specifically in your life? What can you do to get creative in your stewardship? And so I want you to ponder those 2 questions as we go into small groups tonight. We're going to do the same thing we did last week where we did offering in our small groups. So before we dismiss, let's pray, and then we're going to go into small groups. So bow your heads and close your eyes with me. Jesus, thank you for today. God, thank you that we get to give to you. But even further, God, thank you that we get to figure out how to be good stewards for you, Jesus. God, I ask that you just speak to every one of us and show us where in our life we need a little extra stewardship. And God, how we can make that happen, Lord, so that we are able to give to you out of an abundant heart, Jesus. That we're not just giving our leftovers. We're not just giving the change that we have left after we've already bought everything else we already wanted. But God, would you show us how we can give to you from the firsts of our fruits, Jesus? And God, would you take the offering that comes in tonight? And Lord, would you bless it for your name? God, would you just do more with it than we could imagine? And God, as we continue to raise this money for the Bates, Lord, would you bless them as they are overseas? Lord, they gave up their life to go be missionaries for you, God. So would you continue to bless them? In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. All right, middle school, you guys know where you are. Middle school girls, you are over to the right. Middle school guys, left. 9th and 10th, you're in the back. And 11th and 12th, you guys are in the lobby. Also, small group leaders' questions and offering buckets are on the camera stand in the back.